Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. So of course we were there throughout the entire process, the entire electoral process of 2020, and we covered all of the major polls, all the debates, the talking points, the campaign ads, and especially all of the town halls and the focus groups. And the one thing that kept cropping up over and over and over again, probably one of the most important deciding factors when it came to voting for Joe Biden, was the idea that he was going to be a great uniter. That was the key factor when it came to suburban mothers and white suburban women in general, and it was a key deciding factor when it came to independence as well. And we covered all of the focus groups that were essentially suggesting that the temperature of the country under Donald Trump was too high, it was too divisive, things were just too crazy, and people wanted to vote for Joe Biden not for his policies, not for Joe Biden at all, but just to bring the temperature down and to hope that a Joe Biden presidency would bring the country together and end the divisiveness. And Joe Biden, of course, tried to capitalize on that. He tried to run as the great unifier. He claimed that he would be a president for both sides, for Republicans and for Democrats and independents. He would represent everyone. And then, of course, he took office and immediately, like every other promise, he almost instantaneously went back on all of his promises, especially this one, and betrayed so many Americans that voted for him. Well, folks, it's starting to have a serious effect. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that with some little anecdotal evidence of interviews of people on the street, and then of course we'll try to back it up with the data. We've got some stuff to get into, friends, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so we know what Joe Biden has been saying recently. I mean, he's going after MAGA Republicans as semi-fascists, and Karine Jean-Pierre keeps standing at that podium every single day and basically mirroring what the president is saying, completely despicable stuff.
The president thinks that there is an extremist threat to our democracy. The president has been clear as he can be on that particular piece when we talk about a democracy, when we talk about our freedoms. The way that he sees is the MAGA Republicans are the most energized part of the Republican Party. This is an extreme threat to our democracy, to our freedom, to our rights. You know, when you ask me about the MAGA agenda, especially as it relates to Congress, as it relates to elected officials, it is one of the most extreme agendas that we have seen.
Does the president believe that the effort to restrict abortion, whether it's at the local level or the federal level, to restrict that freedom, does he believe that that is semi-fascist?
I mean, he was very clear. He was very clear that MAGA Republicans in Congress have an agenda that is extreme, and that's what you hear from them.
And then, of course, when Karine Jean-Pierre is questioned, is the president stoking divisiveness with his ridiculous remarks? Karine Jean-Pierre goes on the record saying, no, of course not.
But you're also facing some criticism, which has been brought up, that this aggressive tone is also stoking the divisiveness that he's trying to heal. Any concerns about that?
You know, the president's never going to shy away from calling out what he sees.
But of course, we know the exact opposite to be true, and it's obvious because even mainstream media Democrats are admitting it. Take a look at what they're saying on NBC's Meet the Press.
You know, Chuck, what's interesting about this, when he, as you described, used the word semi-fascism to describe the MAGA philosophy this week. Let's go back to March when he was in Poland. He said of Vladimir Putin that he couldn't stay in power, and that became controversial. The White House, backpedaled on that, walked that back. There's no backpedaling on this. It's clear that there's a more aggressive strategy. We talked about the way that they were handling the debate over student loans.
Do you think he actually soft-pedaled it? Do you think someone said you should say fascism and he said, I'm going to say semi-fascism?
When I spoke to Age, this wasn't a teleprompter speech. This is what he's been thinking. They say he said it out loud. This was done not on camera. But it fires up Democrats. It juices up the base because they want to see him be more aggressive on that. But it also does, it does become problematic because, this is a guy who said he wanted to be a unifier.
Here's my
semi-fascist remark by Joe Biden is problematic because he said he wanted to be the unifier. Exactly. Yet all he continues to do is pour fuel on the flame that is the divisive issue in American politics. It is a clear problem. It's obvious on both sides of the political spectrum. And Joe Biden claimed that he was going to bring the country together, yet he continues to make it worse. I mean, here's Joe Biden continuing to promote this lie.
Imagine, Joe, if you turned on the television in Washington, D.C., and saw a mob of 1,000 people storming down the hallways of the parliament, breaking down the doors, trying to overturn an outcome of election, and killing several police officers in the meantime. Imagine what you'd think.
he continues to claim that Trump supporters, quote, killed several police officers. That never happened. Yet he continues to promote this terrorist image of Trump supporters with straight up fake news, while simultaneously claiming to be the great unifier that's bringing the country together. There's a word for these kinds of people, and it starts with the letter A and ends with the word whole. And that, my friends, is exactly what Joe Biden is. And the beautiful thing is that people are really starting to realize. NBC's Peter Alexander may be right. Fox News just conducted some interviews with some individuals on the streets of New York, and I think this sentiment is how a lot of people are feeling right now.
More divided than we ever were.
Far more. He's the most divisive president in the history of the United States, at least in my lifetime.
The most divisive president in the history of the United States. Oh, and of course followed up with some more interviews.
I went through the 60s, and with what's going on now, it makes the 60s look like a cocktail party.
I don't think he's a real leader. Everything is just totally what he ran on, what he said he was going to do. It's not happened.
We could start with the economy. The porous border, the double standard for vaccinations here in our country, crime at an all-time high in Democratic supermajority cities. We'd be here for a while.
What he haven't done is nothing for my people.
It's still not looking good for Joe. People are claiming that he's having an incredible bounce back, but of course he isn't. People view Joe Biden as a divisive president, arguably even more divisive than Donald Trump, and then on top of that, when it comes to policy and performance, he continues to be a disaster. And right now it is clear that there's been a shift in the Democrat strategy heading into the 2022 midterms. They're doubling down and they're being as divisive as they possibly can. They're going on full-on attack mode, and they think it's a good strategy and it's going to benefit them. But I really don't think that's the case, because they're looking like wannabe fascists as they continue to point the finger at the other side. I mean, take a look at what Karine Jean-Pierre just said.
And again, we see majority of Americans who disagree. And so when you are not with where majority of Americans are, then, that is extreme. That is an extreme way of thinking. I'm not going to, that's what I have for you, Phil.
That somehow you're an extremist if you don't agree with the majority view. Well, let's use a little bit of logic here and try to get to the bottom of this. The implication here is clear. And again, the main argument from the Democrats is of course on the abortion issue. But which side is on the extremist side or the minority view when it comes to the abortion issue in America? We've covered this before. The data is absolutely unequivocally clear. We go to Gallup data right over here. The Democrat view, which we've seen from the activist base and of course from so many elected officials and government thought leaders in the media over the last couple of weeks and months, is nearly no limit on the medical procedure. But we've looked at the data. Support for this specific medical procedure drops down to 28% in the second trimester. That's 13 weeks into a pregnancy. And in the third trimester, it drops down to 13%. So which party represents the majority or minority view? Which party, according to Karine Jean-Pierre, is the extremist party? It's clearly the Democrats based on her own definition. See, when you actually add a little bit of nuance to these policy decisions and these Democrat Party stances, things start to change rather quickly. For instance, I keep seeing Democrats post all over Twitter how the majority of the American populace, or as Bernie Sanders would say it, the overwhelming majority of the American population, agrees with their stance when it comes to student loan forgiveness. And they keep posting these polls showing that a very slim majority of the American people, when polled, agree with the $10,000 student loan forgiveness program. But then, of course, when you add a little bit of context, would you favor or oppose the government forgiving up to $10,000 in federal student loan debt if forgiving $10,000 per borrower raised your taxes? Opposition rises very quickly to 64%, and even Democrats are almost evenly split on the issue. Like most of these socialist, communist Democrats, they're all for massive government spending and these very expensive social programs. They just don't want to pay for it. They're totally left-wing and socialist and communist until it comes to their own pocket, in which case they're very firmly conservative when it comes to their own tax bill or tax rates. Complete hypocrites. But again, which party is representing the minority view? Once again, it's the Democrat Party, so I guess they're the most extremist threat in American society. This stuff is absolutely stupid, and frankly, the framing of this is just not helpful in the political realm or environment. This is a very, very dangerous road, folks. And I'm telling you, the Biden administration is taking a very serious gamble with this one. They look terrible. And my prediction is it's really not going to end well for them. And once again, I know it by the data. The most recent Quinnipiac poll questioned Republican voters. Would you like to see Donald Trump run for president in 2024 or not? When they asked this question July 18th, 69% of respondents replied yes. And the most recent iteration of this poll on August 29th, 72% of Republican respondents voted yes. Donald Trump is becoming more popular and more powerful. And when you look at head-to-head matchups, it continues to look extremely bad for Sleepy Joe and his fascist Democrat goons, otherwise referred to as his cabinet, across some of the most important swing states. A head-to-head presidential polling matchup against Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Donald Trump is winning basically across the board. I mean, look at the numbers, folks. They speak for themselves. A lot of people are waking up. They're waking up to the utter disaster and dishonesty of this administration. I mean, just the audacity of these people. Take a look at what Karine Jean-Pierre said the other day.
At a rate not seen in a century, and part of that is being driven by drug overdoses. So what is the president going to do?
And we agree. We see those same numbers as well. But the fact that we are securing the border, the fact that we are securing record levels of funding from DHS so they can stop illicit drugs from entering into the country.
We are securing the border. I mean, do I even need to entertain this statement? Absolutely not. It's completely ridiculous, a flat-out lie. A lot of people are realizing that Joe Biden is not the great unifier that he claimed he was. A lot of people are realizing that the Democrats are just bad news. And a lot of people are realizing that not only was Donald Trump really not that bad, but that he was also right about a lot of things. Everyone kept saying that Donald Trump was crazy, he was extreme, he was hyperbolic. But in the end, in a lot of ways, Trump was right. The example I love using recently is just how right he was about the potential for an energy crisis. Trump was right, world leaders were wrong. Russia just cut off Germany's fuel supply. Who's laughing now? They laughed at him at the UN when he warned them about their dependence on Russian energy, oil, and natural gas. But in the end, Trump was right. And we've said that so many times. I've titled so many videos. Trump was right. At least 15 or 20 of them, possibly even more, over the nearly 2,000 videos that I've released on this channel. Many of them, unfortunately, deleted at this point, thanks to everything that happened a couple months ago. But anyways, the point still stands. People are realizing that Joe Biden is a liar. He's not the better, more ethical option from Donald Trump. And really, the difference is, between the two, at least Donald Trump was coherent and competent, unlike this complete clown who continues to ruin everything. Sentiment is shifting. Donald Trump is winning. He's becoming more powerful, and Joe Biden's presidency continues to crater. But of course, that's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel if you're up for it. I'm gonna get back to work. Thanks for watching like always, and I will see you on the next one.